Alrighty, the judges look like they're just finishing up their notes. So next up, we have Alison. And Alison, as you can see, is a master's in public policy, and she'll talking about building better rental stock for Vancouver families.
Out of over 57,000 units in Vancouver's purpose-built rental stock, fewer than 700 have 3 bedrooms. It's very challenging for families to find suitable housing in the city of Vancouver. Ownership of a unit large enough for a family is simply out of reach for most families today. If Vancouver is to continue to be a place that welcomes children and their parents, families must be better accommodated in the rental stock. So why should we care about having families in the city? Well, first of all, families are an important economic asset because parents are a critical working age demographic. Secondly, the city has an obligation to ensure that the benefits of living there are accessible to all demographics. This is key to social mobility. So my research focuses on what the City of Vancouver can do to encourage the inclusion of more 3-bedroom units in the rental stock. So I talked to developers, landlords, and city planners to better understand this issue. The purpose-built rental stock provides the advantage of greater security of tenure than other rental options, like renting a condo or a basement suite. However, families are all but excluded from this option because there are so few units that meet their needs. So why does this problem exist? Why don't developers want to include more 3-bedroom units in their apartment buildings? Well, it's a question of profitability. Landlords can make more rental income on smaller units per square foot than they can for larger units. So it's really not in a developer's best interest to include more 3-bedroom units. And this is where policy comes in. Policy can be used to encourage, force, or incentivize developers to include more 3-bedroom units in their projects. Forcing developers to include more 3-bedroom units is unlikely to be effective because profits are already quite minimal on rental buildings. The city has had success with encouraging developers to include more 3-bedroom units, but it still isn't enough. So my research suggests that the city should incentivize developers to include more 3-bedroom units. Now, the city has finite resources with which to incentivize the many objectives that they wish to accomplish. But making space in the city for families is an important objective worthy of incentivization. The city is currently witnessing a boom in purpose-built rental construction, creating an opportunity to develop the stock that serves the city for decades to come. The city should implement policies today that ensure there is enough suitable housing for families of tomorrow. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Alison?
So, I mean, incentivisation seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. What do you have in mind?
A density bonus is what I had in mind for the form of incentivization. So the city already provides a density bonus to enable secured rental buildings in the city because otherwise they're not profitable at all. So I'm proposing an additional incentive on top of that to increase the number of 3-bedroom units.
Out of tax dollars?
Sorry?
Out of tax dollars? You're not out of the city coffers?
No, so it's so what they do is they allow developers to build a larger building than would normally be allowed on a particular zone. And by doing that, that increases the profits they can take from that land. And that's something the city uses to accomplish a lot of goals that aren't profitable. Yeah.
The definition seems a little bit self-intuitive, but what exactly is a density bonus?
So a density bonus is, so all zones in the city have requirements about what can be built on them. And there's usually quite strict size allowable of how big a building can be on a particular zone. So what the density bonus does is that it requires the developer to include a specific amenity in order to get additional density that allows them to have additional profits in order to recoup the loss that they had by including that amenity.
So would that include something like, say, a main grocery store?
I'm not exactly sure about grocery stores, but things like daycares, rental, affordable housing is a big one.
So there's a lot of cities in which smaller houses are encouraged. So it's proven that more bedrooms equals better life for families, or is it just like something that we desire, but maybe it's not the optimal for the cities of tomorrow?
Right. So in Canada, we have a definition from CMHC about what's suitable for families, and under that definition, families with one child would need 2 bedrooms, and families with 2 children of the same gender would require a 2-bedroom apartment. Families with more than that, or 2 children of different genders, would require 3 bedrooms. And so that's the definition that I worked with in my project. It's a good question.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Alison.